Here's an experiment for you. Take passionate experts in human resource technology. Invite cross-industry experts from inside and outside HR. Mix in what's happening in people analytics today. Give them the technology to connect. Hit record. Pour their discussions into a beaker. Mix thoroughly. And voila, you get the HR Data Labs podcast, where we explore the impact of data and analytics to your business. We may get passionate and even irreverent, but count on each episode challenging and enhancing your understanding of the way people data can be used to solve real-world problems. Now, here's your host, David Turetsky.
Hello and welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast. I'm your host, David Turetsky, alongside my trusted friend, co-host, and partner at Salary.com, Dwight Brown. How are you, Dwight Brown?
Good, David. How are you doing?
I'm okay. But today, I'm outstanding. Do you know why?
Why?
Because we're talking to my friend, Robyn Rodriguez, from her HR help desk, who is one of the most brilliant people I've met in a really long time. Robyn, how are you?
Oh, I was going to respond and say, oh my God, thanks so much. I didn't want to toot my own horn so early in the podcast.
No, we're going to toot that for you.
I'm great. David, we've been meaning to do this for a long, long time. So I'm very excited to be here today. And of course, love this topic.
I love it too. But before we get to the topic, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and a little bit about her HR help desk.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Robyn Rodriguez. I am the founder and chief people officer of her HR help desk, which is an HR consulting firm for women by women. What does that mean is that we focus on supporting women-owned businesses, career women, female founders, and then women in the C-suite. We really want to come in, be an extension of their team, and help them shine in their leadership role.
And we are very blessed to actually work with Robyn on a few different projects, and hopefully more at some point soon. But Robyn, also, before we go into our topic, what's one fun thing that no one knows about you?
Oh my God, I feel like I'm an open book on LinkedIn, so everybody knows everything. I'm a dog mom. I rescue senior dogs, and I love wine. So I think those would be my two hobbies. And if you're in HR and you don't drink wine, like, what are you doing anyways on the weekends?
Well, yeah, okay, but I don't drink wine, but I have the dog part. Okay. Actually, we should probably look at founding a dog winery. How about that?
That would be really cool. I think one already exists, actually, but yeah, we can steal it. Yeah,
to the so much for that idea.
Wah, wah, wah. So that wasn't my roadcaster. That was me. All right, let's talk about our topic today because it's really kind of cool. The topic for today is Keys to Success, Empowering Women Leaders in HR. So, Robyn, the first question is, what are the unique contributions women bring to HR?
Hello, this is Michael Vandervoort from the Drive Through HR podcast, where we discuss ideas, trends, and activities that impact HR, talent, HR technology in the workplace. Our focus is on expanding knowledge and igniting curiosity as we hear directly from people who are shaping the future of the HR industry. Join us.
Well, I think a lot of the unique contributions women bring to HR is really just that, I want to say that feminine energy, and not in a bad way. I know we're talking about this a lot, but I think it really matters, especially with the younger generations of workers, and really having that compassion and empathy. You know, I think that is really the strongest skill set because women lead differently. And when you're leading people, you have to remember that people are people and not machines. And so I think that's really the strongest thing a woman brings to the world today when they're working in HR.
But I mean, beyond that, there's a lot of other things like it's not overstating it to say that some of the advancements we've seen, not just in the world of HR, but obviously elsewhere, we can point back to some of the pioneers, and a lot of times we can point back to female pioneers in this space. Is there anybody that, as you were kind of growing up in the HR space, kind of led you to be in that as a pioneer and kind of showed you the pathway forward?
You know, that's an interesting question. I'm kind of a rebel, so I've always learned a lot of things I saw that I didn't like. And that's really how I created her HR help desk. And the reason for that was I had to go out and create a space where I felt comfortable that I could be authentic and use my own voice and do these things before this kind of became a trend, right? So I do think it is a lot of those soft skills. And I do think that women leaders do a lot of great things. I do think when women leaders cannot show up as their full self, I guess,
Right.
at work, or leader self,
Right.
they kind of then decide what sacrifices they're personally going to make to survive and work in an environment out of self-preservation. So there's a lot of peeling back to that onion. I think that needs to happen so that we can just do what we do best. And it is bring those soft skills, emotional intelligence, communication, being able to stand up and really motivate people in a different way than maybe, a male CEO would do, and seeing how can we do that in tandem versus, having it be so masculine, directive, cut and dry as it was in the past.
I look at some of the female leaders that I've seen in my past, and Maria Black, who now heads up ADP, she's the CEO of ADP. Those are strong leaders. Just saying the word strong leader, you don't have to qualify what gender they are, but it's wonderful to see that they're being recognized and elevated to the place that they should be, which is, obviously this person was the right person for the job in that seat. And is there typically that kind of thought process of course that she's the right person? Or do people go, well, she was promoted because she was a woman?
I don't know about all that. I mean, I think you're groomed in such a big org like that. And I mean, I worked at ADP, so I have to tread lightly here, right?
This is a positive thing. This is a positive thing.
No, I know. But I mean, are we grooming women into that role? And then is she, authentic to herself? So that's the thing where I think it's like, if we look at, Claude Silver does a really good job of this, of saying I'm a heart-led, chief people officer. She's with Gary Vaynerchuk. I really have a lot of admiration for her. And she has a job that is like a dream job in HR. Do 95% of companies give their CHRO the ability to be that person? They don't. So yes, I think there's strong leaders. I love so many female leaders in C-suites, but we do have to acknowledge that they're female, because there aren't just enough. And so right now, if we have to shamelessly plug, she's a female, that's why she got the job. I don't know that that's the right way to say it, but she's a female and she deserves that job and she's worked for that job.
Right.
And I think we do need to qualify the gender because the numbers are still so small. Even in HR, we see women all over, but are women the true decision makers in HR? And that's where I think there's still a big gap that we need to address.
It's calling out the inequity that is just there, and not necessarily saying she got it because she's a woman, but what I hear you saying is let's call out what the situation currently is so that we're all maintaining awareness going forward.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of female HR leaders get stuck at a glass ceiling, right? Mm-hmm. And that's really hard to break through. I myself have been stuck in that glass ceiling in a VP role, and I don't have leadership opportunities to develop me further. So in an organization as large as ADP, it's great that we can build leaders, but you have to be intentional about doing that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm often caught in a big controversy here about ERGs, and we have women employee resource groups. That's amazing. And that's how we support our women. But how many women are being plucked out of those groups or out of their roles and really being developed to be executive leaders in an organization? You don't need to have 250,000 employees to do that.
That's true. That is very true. But then again, Dwight and I have spoken about ERGs and how wonderful they are. The problem, I think, with that is that isn't that supposed to be really a safe space where people can be themselves, they can be expressive, they can ask for help on things, but it really not leave that space. It's kind of like what goes in, what's said in ERG stays in ERG.
Well, what's interesting is I just did a presentation to younger women about advocating for themselves. We address that in the workplace, outside of the workplace. And then I had 2 ERGs called to ask me to speak to them. One ERG I thought was I'm so excited. I haven't done this chat yet, but the woman told me, like, we live our company values. So they already have permission and they have a safe space at a company level.
Yeah.
And so they don't need to go to this room, virtual room of an ERG to have a safe space.
Not exactly the circumstance that a lot of people face, though.
That's right. That's right. And I have one that's a little bit different. The other one I'm talking to, it's a very male-led industry. And so we're approaching these 2 conversations, even though, the foundation is still advocating for themselves. The tips, tricks, techniques, what they need to do are different.
Right.
So it's a lot to do with organizational culture as well.
Absolutely.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe. This podcast is made possible by Salary.com. Now, back to the show.
That leads me to ask the second question. So as you talk to your peers and your clients, what are the challenges beyond that, breaking through that culture that we just talked about, that you consistently hear?
Yeah, I mean, my own challenge is the fight I'm fighting currently today is I'm so sick of 98% of HR people are burnt out in their jobs, period. There's no action plan to remediate or fix that. That's problematic when our leaders aren't coming in to support us. And that's not gender specific. When we go into what we can do to set our female HR leaders up for success, some of the things I'm consistently hearing is that we're just being set up for failure. Like, I can't do everything. I am potentially a mom. I'm a dog mom. I have other competing priorities. And so I really want to see leaders of companies acknowledge the other things we have going on and set us up for success. I think we know once we get up the chain, we know we're going to have to make some sacrifices to be in a leadership role because it's a big job. It's a hard job. But are those sacrifices fair? Are they realistic? Or do we need to have stronger conversations and interview processes up front as to what the expectation of that leader is in that role?
I think that goes without saying of any job that you get promoted into, is that you have to have that expectation as to how does this change what I do and who I am? Because we often don't have that. We often ignore that because it's kind of the suck it up, you're getting promoted. And here's a bunch more money, so we're paying for you, right?
Right.
It's not a, hey, we recognize you have kids and, male or female, you got kids, you want to go home and take care of them, or you are home and you have to get them off the bus and whatnot. It's the, suck it up and just deal with it.
Prioritize us over your kids. And
exactly. What the hell's that?
I don't think so. Right.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't have to, but in today's world, you kind of have to, and it's just
right.
the kids and the husband come after, all of the employees. And I said this during COVID. I was talking to another HR person where I was working, and I said, I'm taking care of 14,999 people, but there's 15,000 people at this company. And the one I'm not taking care of is me.
And probably the most important person there. To you.
Well, I mean, if you want me to get things done,
right, exactly.
Right, I got to refuel my tank. Like, I've got to show up like this. I've got to recharge the batteries, right? And so, I think that there, needs to be some focus on that.
So the question that I've got is: do females feel like they have to sacrifice more to be in those leadership positions? Do you think there's a difference in the way that females feel about that versus males?
Yeah, I do. Because I feel like what we can layer into this is imposter syndrome. I just think,
Absolutely.
a lot of females, sadly, and this is something we have to change. I really hate imposter syndrome. To me, that's a self-worth issue. There's so much imposter syndrome as you move up the ladder into these leadership roles, especially like for myself, being so young. I just had the benefit that I was born with a big voice and didn't care, and so I kind of just would plow through those barriers. I don't necessarily know that in today's world I'd be able to achieve what I did back then by using my, aggressive voice and force.
You don't
Right?
think?
I don't think, not in today's world, but I think it's because it's not me. And now like I get this permission to be more of who I am instead of wearing all of this armor to come into work every day. And that is exhausting. So I'm just not going to give into that anymore. I'm just going to be that. Sometimes Robyn is, I say I run her HR help desk. Our two values are empathy and precision. I want to be empathetic. That is who I am as a human. Precision is compliance, getting things done and going into execution mode and making sure things are done right from an HR operations perspective, and that we're not dropping the ball and forgetting reporting because we care about culture. You both are equally important in my world. So I want to show up as that person and take the armor off, just so I think that can make me a big leader. Again, to our point, how many spaces allow you to do that?
Right.
If you're having to do that and you're having to be that forceful HR leader, and then, you're coming home and you're probably just zonked. And that's why 98% of HR professionals are burnt out.
And now we know.
The more you know.
Yeah.
But so let's say it this way. You're saying they're on a treadmill. They're running really fast. They have to have that layer of armor around them to protect themselves because they feel like if they don't, they're going to be, well, first of all, they're going to be overwhelmed for all the work that's necessary. And also, they feel like they have to protect themselves. Is there a solution to that? Is there something that can be done about that?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, are we going to change our entire C-suite and leadership teams? No. Are we going to change companies? Maybe, but how do we drive that? And that's where I think I would like to see more mentorship and more sponsors within or either inside your organization or outside of it. I want to see more CHROs stepping up to really develop these next leaders and make sure they're prepared for the job. And I think that would help alleviate imposter syndrome. I was very fortunate that I had sponsors that were men in the organization that did that for me. And I'm forever grateful for those men for having my back. But I got those sponsors because I worked my ass off.
Right,
and it was because I showed up looking one way and being fun and loud and all these things. And then, a PwC partner walked in one day and asked me something about taxes. And I turned back and I said, here's where all of our taxes are. Here's where we're falling short. Here's what we need to do. And we had this deep conversation. And he said, God, I just gained so much respect for you that day. And as an external partner, he really helped propel my career, really backed me up in that organization. And together we got a lot done.
Is part of it, and please excuse this, is part of it luck, finding that person, or is it being able to, or being good enough to find that person either inside or outside your organization that can help you be that mentor to tell you what you're not doing well or how to see the light or how to see something differently inside yourself?
Yeah, but to see the light, your eyes have to be open. And what I'm learning is a lot of this has to do with being an inside job. I have to be able to take constructive criticism. I also have to have enough confidence to show up in that room and say what I'm thinking. I also need to have compelling data to tell a story. I need to know my people. I need to know what we're working on. I need to know their challenges. So I need to be sure that I am fully researched, up to date, as knowledgeable as possible, in HR and those fields, so I can talk a good game when I show up. So as we talk about advocating for yourself and looking for sponsors and mentors, I gained a lot of that because I was knowledgeable. I gained a lot of that credibility because I was on the board of the Los Angeles American Payroll Association when I was 25 years old. That was definitely probably the most boring thing I did when I was 25, but it got me it got me a lot of credibility.
Right.
Yeah.
It got me a lot of credibility, and it was fun because the part I enjoyed was teaching other payroll professionals, preparing them for their test and kind of being that example. So for me, it's like, yes, you have to do that, but then also you have to have the confidence to ask. Like I asked that partner, hey, will you put in a good word with CEO next time you see him? Because I just saved our company $1 million. Like, can you throw Robyn a bone? I mean, and you have to be fearless.
But that's not nothing, right? People that don't advocate for themselves after having saved a company $1 million, they should kind of stand up and go, yeah, that was me. I did that, because if you leave that on the cutting room floor, there's no one that's going to come by and sweep it up and go, wow, who did this? No one knows. It's kind of like, does a bear poop in the woods? Yeah, of course, we've seen it. Somebody videotaped it, but no one cares. But this is big. I mean, this is huge. And people have to be able to understand that that's got to be something that they trumpet from the top of rooftops.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think, like we said, toot your own horn. And it would be shocking to you, even here working at her HR help desk, when I talk to CEOs, female CEOs, and how much they don't sell themselves, like at their company, as a leader to their employees, to their customers, And so to your point, I ask women all the time, do you have a list of your biggest accomplishments? And they say no. We don't even keep a list because we're on the treadmill. We're stuck in the day-to-day. We're never unplugging. We're never going back. We're never giving ourselves our own credibility, like how we're showing up for everybody else but ourselves. Like at least make a list about that and talk about it when it comes to your performance review, or talk about those 10 things in the next executive meeting.
Right.
Whenever you have the space, I want you to shamelessly plug yourself and your accomplishments.
I'm sure at the board meeting that stuff has to come up. I mean, that person being on the treadmill, they have to be able to toot that horn at that level or they're going to lose their job.
Probably the results come up.
Yeah.
Who they center around, probably a little different conversation.
But at the CEO level, though, Dwight, and maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, both of you. But the CEO level, anything that happens in the company is either your fault or your success, right? So if things are going okay and nothing's falling off the truck, that's good. If results are being met, that's good. If they're not, that's your fault.
And let's face it, though, it is not necessarily a matter of it's either a failure or a success. It's usually who failed, and then we gloss over the successes.
Well, I don't know. I think I got two things here. I've seen a lot of females in HR roles be the scapegoat for failures beyond their capacity of what they can do within an organization.
Right.
Yes.
Like, okay, so that's one thing, right? So that's one thing. And then to your point, Dwight, successes and failures. We're in this time where we're being forced out of the dinosaur age to redefine what's a success and what's a failure. As an HR consultant, we'll always tell you, oh, this is an opportunity.
Right.
Opportunities.
Right.
Oh, God, if I dream one more night about HR opportunities. But, I think that we can redefine that. And, one thing I had on my list as I prepared for this was trusting our decisions.
Right.
And to your point, Dwight, we're talking about the end results, but are we talking about the work that's being put in between? And when I tell leaders that advocate, it's not about advocating for yourself. If you have a team, you better be advocating for your team.
Right.
Right.
And then that makes you shine. And in essence, they advocate for you.
Yeah.
But if we're not talking about those accomplishments and we're just saying we saved the company $1 million, we're not doing a good job of telling a compelling story as to why it was better for Robyn to be involved in the $1 million savings than anybody else.
Storytelling is a skill. Not a lot of people have it. You do. but a lot of people don't, because a lot of people don't feel comfortable that they can organize their thoughts in a way that makes sense in a story.
Get your ass off the treadmill and go to Toastmasters. That is literally going to be the strongest skill as AI comes into play, as we use data and metrics. You have to be a storyteller.
Absolutely. 100%. As you transition from being an administrator pushing forms to telling the story of why your company has turnover or why your company can't hire the right people, storytelling is key.
Correct. And that's where I think leaders fall short. That's what I think those stories aren't being told in the boardroom that way. I think we're going through a slide deck, but we're not telling the stories. We might not have the opportunity, but that is where the world is going.
Well, slide decks are invariably just boring as hell because people rely on words, and they rely on people to watch the words and go, ooh, I'm reading that as this person's talking. I'm not really listening to them. I'm just looking at that.
Right.
Instead of it being like a TED Talk where, there's a word on the slide and the person's just telling the story about it.
Yeah, the other thing that happens a lot with HR in board meetings and rooms behind those rooms is we're just talking about the comp committee stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, are we promoting these people? Are we giving them this money? Are we doing this? And we're running through that. And then we've lost the attention, right? So again, it's strategy. Strategy is what's going to set you apart, like you said, from just the basic HR manager, boss, to a leader. The strategy is the difference. Thinking, getting off the treadmill and thinking from the top, I was out with my girlfriend recently, or this past weekend, drinking wine. No surprise there. She was visiting from town, and she just recently got promoted, and she's a leader. She's managing teams now. And she said, I had to redefine what success looked like because I'm no longer a consultant delivering the work. Success looks like for me building strong relationships. So having a great conversation where I'm building rapport internally or externally with clients or other leaders in the business is success. But I really had to change my mindset to get there. And that's, again, strategy, right? That's from going like writing everything in the deck to delivering value out of that deck. It's
so hard to change from tactical to strategic. Your mind's, it's basically an orthogonal thought. I don't have to worry about how the payroll change form gets done. I just have to worry about how many payroll change forms have we done and what does it mean to the company?
Yeah.
You're literally using another hemisphere of your brain, but only through the strategy can you actually guide the conversation.
Exactly. But also, if you're on a treadmill that's strategy, that's a very different treadmill than a treadmill on tactics.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, because then I call those, $200,000 slide decks. I've made a lot of those. You present change, right?
Yep.
Truly, my background is HR transformation and change. And like pre-COVID, that was a commodity.
Yeah.
Post-COVID, it's a necessity, right?
Absolutely.
HR transformation and change and being able to think and think bigger. So you're right. When you're on a strategy treadmill and you can't execute or get anything past the line, you're also probably likely to lose your job, like the person on the treadmill getting the personnel action forms done, right? 100 forms, getting it done, getting everybody, everybody's taken care of and not being strategic. It's equally a fault on the opposite side of being so high in the sky that you don't understand where you can make swift changes in the business that have an impact so you could build data and tell that story.
And that's the mindset differential right there. That's it. If we could nail it down in a nutshell, Robyn, you just nailed it. And when HR people think about getting promoted, or they think about changing their level, or they think about how their career goes, that exact change in mindset has to be at the cornerstone of making that change. Because if they can't do that, don't bother. Don't do it. You're going to be a fish out of water. You've got to learn how to get there. And once you get there, and once you understand it, then you're going to be swimming with all the other fishes, and you're going to be happy, and you're going to be in nice warm water. I don't think I can nail that analogy anymore.
I mean, as long as that warm water is on the beach in Tulum, I'm good.
With wine.
But
and a cabana.
The challenge is with all of that, there's no HR school. how are we learning this? Where are we learning it from?
People are coming to the HR Data Labs podcast to learn this, obviously.
Yeah.
Or they're talking to Robyn Rodriguez.
Yeah. So I think that what's great with social media, with LinkedIn, David, you and I often talk on LinkedIn because I spend a lot of time there just educating myself, reading people's opinions, joining groups, expanding your knowledge, finding HR people that have that growth mindset and a continuous learning and doing that, reading books that are not HR and how can we apply those principles, back into HR. Recently I saw a lot of, hey, let's treat HR like we treat a customer success team or a product team or things like that, right? And make those changes. But there are skills that we can leverage out of, other areas in the business to help build the HR function. And if you don't know, then you can go ask a peer and say, hey, how do you guys do this? Or, hey, I like that. I like the way you told that story. Or how are you pulling this data out of the system? What can I leverage so that I can be stronger in what I'm providing as an ROI to the company?
Right. I think HR has learned a lot of lessons from marketing. I think HR has learned a lot of lessons from finance about how to operate better, how to operate more efficiently, how to tell stories better, and how to be more thoughtful of the analytical nature of business today as far as the transformation goes.
But I want to see people backing it up. I don't want to see marketing teams telling HR stories and then you sign a deal with this company and nobody's answering the phone, right? And you're not getting any support on the back end. I talked about that. You guys can go back in my feed. I'm not going to say who it is here, but they had like these two women with leather jackets on, and they're like, we do the HR and payroll well. We're so amazing. We're a great brand. And then when you log into their system on the back end, like it's archaic. They're not collecting any data I can use to tell a story other than names, addresses, phone numbers. Like that's selling data. That's not data I can utilize and build back into my business.
Right. So what you're saying is that it's okay to emulate, but you have to learn how it impacts your business. Don't just take it lock, stock, and barrel.
Yeah. Get in and really know your business and then do that. I mean, and HR people also were getting better about learning the business that we're operating in, right? We think we're in the business of people, but if we're working at a tech company or fintech or whatever, like how are we developing our people to build the best fintech technology in the ecosystem? How are we delivering there? Like you have to, again, think way bigger. You have to know what the company is working on. What are the initiatives? What are the CEO's initiatives? And how can we connect the dots to our people initiatives to get us where we need to go as an organization?
And HR alignment to the overall business plan, I know that sounds foreign, but it shouldn't be. It should always be the case that the HR business plan is aligned to the organizational business plan. Top level, bottom level, everything. It needs to be able to follow it and be able to focus on it and support it.
Yeah. You're kind of living on that line of operations, right? Like, being lock and step with the COO or understanding the operational needs of the business are huge. And HR operations are huge.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love right now, we're a lot into that culture. I get you. But HR operations, what happens on the back end, efficiencies, user technology adoption, right? Again, the numbers as we build out, as I work with you and your teams to build out comp plans, like that's huge. That's HR operations. Those are things where that precision is required. You can't fake it till you make it there.
Hey, are you listening to this and thinking to yourself, man, I wish I could talk to David about this? Well, you're in luck. We have a special offer for listeners of the HR Data Labs podcast, a free half-hour call with me about any of the topics we cover on the podcast or whatever is on your mind. Go to salary.com/HRDL consulting to schedule your free 30-minute call today. Let's go back to the original purpose, though. Is there anything in specific that is the challenge for females working in that environment that you would say, this is where I would tell you to invest your time?
Yeah, I think investing your time in what you can bring to the table is going to be the best kind of skill that you can work on right now. And I know it sounds dumb again, but soft skills can really set you apart here as we get into leadership. But yeah, I mean, I think that female leaders need to really understand their own value. And I think that really starts with being an inside job. Like, what are you good at? Where are your deficiencies? Who can help you with those deficiencies? Where can I find these things? And where can I go and look? I see a lot of people in HR groups, Facebook groups and stuff asking questions, but they're not asking to learn. Who can help me learn this? Hey, can I have a call with you? Can we talk through this, and using those resources? But there's a lot of perfection paralysis, and that's not us. Our companies have set HR people, this is not gender specific, up that everything has to be executed flawlessly. You can't make a mistake or you're going to lose your job. So what do? You get back on that treadmill. You don't have any space.
And you worry about perfection.
Right.
And you worry about perfection. And you don't have any space to shine because you're constantly getting grinded, right, by like in the meat grinder.
Exactly.
And so can you just be like, hey, I'm going to do this, and not that we're going to fail. I mean, this is the thing. And these are the opportunities and the lessons learned. That's something that I've leveraged a lot through project management, right? Which is, a good tool to have in HR and program management. What were the lessons learned? What could we have done better? Or sitting around the table again and just saying, hey, today it's just a session of what could go wrong. Let's all talk it out and then think of every scenario and how we can combat that. And then when you think of those things, it's like, who's really answering the phones now? Because now we've got somebody working in HR inbox. That's the HR coordinator. We've got shared services people answering the phones. Like, are we equipping them at that low level with the tools they need to be successful? Because if not, then we're not going to be successful.
Right. Exactly. You can't focus 100% on the strategic and ignore the tactical. You still have to support the tactical.
Yep. Definitely. So look at that. Seems like there's a lot of things we need to do, which is part of the reason why 98% of HR people are burned out.
Burned out.
Yes, I totally agree. And that leads us to ask the question of, is there really ever a solution? The answer is probably no. It's probably try, do your best. Perfection is never going to happen. Right?
Well, this is the good old adage of, in self-development here. It's like, what do we control?
Right.
And what don't we control? And, I feel like the pressure, Dwight, going back to your early question for female leaders, is we own so many things as far as like being a mom. What if you're a single mom and an HR leader? You probably can't speak up and be yourself because you need your job. And so you don't want to be a contrarian because you got to keep your job to feed your kids. There's a lot of different things on the line here. To your point, how do we solve for that? How do we solve for that when we can't control that, right? We can't control that there are leaders that are working out of self-preservation,
right,
that are basically then making all of us modern HR leaders that really want to take these initiatives to the next level. They make our work harder for us.
It seems impossible, but
it does seem impossible, but there is hope. And there are hope in the fact that companies are changing. There's hope in the fact that instead of all of us older, HR leaders talking about the younger generations as, oh my God, they don't want to come to work. Like, what can we leverage that they're bringing in and challenging us to do better that we can benefit off of? And I joke with somebody because this older woman and I were talking about something, and I say older, I'm 45, but like people coming in the workforce I know I'm not that old, but people coming in the workforce are 20, whatever.
I know.
And so I'm thinking like, they think I'm old. I don't think I'm old, but they do.
You're only as old as you think you are.
Yeah, they think we're ancient.
Yeah, when I mentor, here in Austin, I forget that these, I'm mentoring these younger women and I'm like almost the age of their parents.
Yeah. Right.
And then I'm like, oh, then that makes me feel, yeah,
Well,
I get
at least you're not old enough to be their grandparent like me or Dwight.
Yeah. Yeah. That's about the point that I'm at too.
We'll be the cool parents.
There you
but,
go.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
But the point of all that is really that, what can we leverage from that? And in that conversation with that woman, I told her, you just said you like to do yoga, but you're now like the younger generation is helping us get to the point where it's socially acceptable for us to clock out at 5 or 5:30 to be able to go to yoga. There's value in that. I don't think a lot of people see value in that. I see a lot of value in that. I see a lot of that generation pushing corporations to change. And now what's so interesting is we're in a big fight, right? We got the return to office stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just here watching from the sidelines. I'm really enjoying all the ads and stuff, but we're seeing all of that happen. And does that return to office initiatives put us back a few years in supporting women and a work-life balance?
Totally agree.
That's the bigger question.
And that's a question we can answer in the next time we have you on the HR Data Labs podcast, Robyn, because that in and of itself is an entirely different chapter of this conversation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I want to thank you. First off, thank Dwight. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then we'll thank Robyn.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being with us, Robyn. No, this is awesome.
It is our honor. And as I said, we're going to have you back again because there's just so much more to talk about.
Yeah. And thanks to you guys both for being open. I know, David, you and I talk about this all the time. How can you do better?
Yep.
But, being open, being an ally, supporting women in the workplace, which as I know you do, and you're recently promoted into that big role and big title. So
on the treadmill. Yeah.
The Tro, I call him the Tro.
Yeah. Tro. Yeah.
Yeah. But I always appreciate you creating space for us women coming up in the game.
And, it's something where I've made mistakes in my past and I'm learning every day and knowing that I'm a fallible idiot man, that I've got to do better. I've really got to do better. Can't use my privilege. I got to be able to see things differently, to walk a mile in other people's shoes, or at least an inch, and figure out what I can do to be better and be different.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, Robyn, again, thank you very much. You're awesome. Take care, and everybody, take care and stay safe.
That was the HR Data Labs podcast. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you know anyone that might like to hear it, please send it their way. Thank you for joining us this week, and stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe.